Hello and welcome to the channel. Time for another Runewars battle report. Another friendly game, and this time I'm playing against Lewis, who has already appeared in a previous battle report. So again, this is my Latari versus his Waiqar. I'm using my Megan Sinduin Fire Rune list, so I've got my big unit of machine gun archers there. Aliana with Malcolm's Bequest to help get the runes that I need. Dlist warriors with the wind rune to go zooming around the place. Asan with the Raven Tabards, column of Leonx riders, and a small unit of Deepwood archers with tempered steel. Lewis is running a small unit of archers with combat ingenuity to hand out some blight, a 2x1 of Karen Lancers with rank discipline, a big block of reanimates with terrifying heraldry, unhallowed wind, and dispatch runner, a 2x2 of death knights with a shield of Margath and rank discipline, and a 2x2 of wraiths with the bull pennant, unhallowed wind, and faces of the fallen. So as you can see, he's running a panic heavy list, all about making me take panic tests. So we'll see how this goes. Again, we're playing a new scenario. This is Defended Pass. Now, we had a few issues with this scenario and setup, and you can go have a look at the Fantasy Flight forums to see what we thought of it. Because the way it works is you've got one person sets up down here, and one person gets to set up in these two blue bits. Apart from the fact that, don't be fooled by this setup, these numbers don't add up, and this deployment zone ends up right up really close. So the red and blue deployment zones are actually really close together. This is not to scale at all, and you might not be able to read it, but it is up on the Fantasy Flight website. So the way this scenario works is that one person is the attacker, the other person is the defender. Essentially, the attacker sets up here in the red zone and puts an objective token on one of his units, and puts another one down here within range 5 or the short board edge. And at the end of every turn, you score an objective token worth 75 victory points if you have a unit in range of an objective token and the opponent does not. Which is all fine and dandy, but the red player down here starts with an objective token on a unit all the way down here, and the blue player has to actually go and pick one up. So even in best case scenario, the blue player has a unit that's quick enough to go pick this token up, go sit next to it back here. He then has to send the rest of his army to fight the red player down here, and is minus a unit who has to guard this objective token, which doesn't move, in order to keep scoring the 75 points that the red player has. This will become clear in the final score for this game. So we had an equal bid, and I won the roll-off. So I decided to be the red player down here, so I'm set up in this massive deployment zone, almost half the board, whilst Lewis's undead are stacked up in these side bits here, which are just wide enough for two trays. But that's the end of my deployment zone, that's the end of his, so that's how much distance there could be between us. Now I've deployed a bit further back because I don't really fancy taking all of his army to the face. So I've got my archers, I've got my column of riders here. The plan was that they can just shoot at these knights as they come into me. I can shoot them into combat, but I wanted to set these guys up for the counter charge, but we'll see how that works. I've got my Sion, I've got my other archers, I've got my Aliana, and my Donati here have the objective token. So a bit like in my game versus Matt recently, their job is just to sit here and score me points, not do a lot. First turn, and no red runes for me, which is a bit of a bugger, but 3 green runes, which means I've got lethal 3 on all my shots anyway. He's just pushed right up with his cavalry, and I was thinking that he was going to just dial in the 4 move, 2 move to end up in combat with me. Anyway, I dialed in a shoot and take off 4 of them. That's right, 4 death knights in between my shot and the fire rune, because the way we read it, I've got 2 hits on my shot, times 3 is 6, plus the 3 green runes, so lethal 3, that's 9 wounds, that's already 3 knights gone. And then I use my fire rune. Now I rolled a hit or 2 hits, I can't remember. Now I have a threat of 0 because there are no red runes, but because I got to throw the dice, and I've still got lethal 3 from Meg and Sinduin and the 3 green runes, that was another knight gone, so that's half the unit gone in one go. These guys just muck about at the back. My Aliana's just pushed back to try and hold on as long as possible before she goes in using her ambush predator. He's trying to shift his archers out. He's swung them out like this. Same with his reanimates here, trying to swing them back. You'll notice he hasn't sent any units to claim this objective token at the back. He's just decided to ignore it. We read the scenario quite a few times, decided, well, we'll just see what happens. So I dialed in the counter charge with my Leonx Riders, but because I was well good, I didn't line up the angle properly, and they just go scooting this way, hitting absolutely nothing. His wraiths have pushed through the scenery. He tried to swing his Karen Lancers up here around, but he thought his archers were going to go a bit further, so they end up getting stuck here. So into turn 2, better for the fire rune, but only lethal 1 this time, so we'll see how that goes. He charges in with his knights, gets the double panic. So he kills 6 archers. He could have killed off the Scion, given the fact that he was only armoured 2 this round, but he opted to try and get rid of as many archers as he could. And this was a real bugger for me. His panic test, he got uncertainty. Now these guys, you can't see the dial, have a shot dialed in, because obviously I've got close quarters targeting, so I could shoot into combat and wipe him out. But uncertainty means I'm now facing the wrong way, which means I dial in the shot and nothing happens, because yes, I can shoot into combat, but I still have to be able to see. These guys have moved up, they weren't in range, they're still swinging around. My lions here, I've had to reform them, and they're basically going to try and early next turn go and wipe out as many of these guys as possible, whilst I try desperately to get my archers back round. Pushing up really aggressively with his wraiths, I've repositioned my tree to try and go in and hit him. He's rallied at some point here to get the inspiration token. These guys dialed in a shot, but I think at the time when it came through, because these guys moved quite late, there was nothing in range. So overall, a bit of a whiff of a turn for me. And we go into turn 3. Ooh, 4 red runes. This could be good. If only I could do something with it. So I charge in to the flank here with my Leonx Riders, putting a panic token on him, and I killed 2 of them outright, which is nice. Now I chose to get rid of these guys here so they weren't in combat anymore, so they weren't in danger of getting hit back, which in hindsight was a mistake. These guys go charging into the archers. Ah yes, they go charging into my archers. Now they can't close in. They can't close in and here and line up all nicely, so they stop where they can. And you can't see this, but I've actually got a sharp turning charge dialed in with my tree, which at the moment will hit them. But here's the problem. He does enough damage to wipe out a tray, which he's then able to close in on, moving him up to here, which means that this guy misses his charge quite badly, which is frustrating. Now he dials in the attack with his knights. Not a great roll. Pops a couple of wounds onto the tree. Now the reason why I said I should have kept them engaged with the knights is because they have rank discipline, which means they're re-rolling. If I'd kept them engaged with my knights, they wouldn't have had that re-roll. But hey ho, you live you learn. His reanimates are pushing up, and what he does is he pushes up with them and uses the dispatch runner for these guys to wipe out the rest of the tree and a load more archers, so they are getting work done. Feeling that these guys were going to come in, I dialed in a charge with Aliana, so she goes in, and yes, it's only turn 3 with her ambush predator, but she rolls like an absolute beaut up here, you can see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 6 with the surge, 7, 8, 9, if I'm correct on the, there's 9 or 10 total, including the ambush predator and an extra wound from an extra mortal wound. So either way, I reached 10, which killed off 5 of them. These guys, I dialed in a shift backwards to try and get out of combat, and you'll see over here I'd shifted them. I dialed in a shift back and a reform for these guys to get them back into the fight. And that's what the battlefield looks like. The remnants of his knights are here. My cav, we'll see if I can get them out of danger here. His reinforcements are closing in, but we'll see. I've still got a threat 3 unit here, re-rolling with a fire rune. I've got this one lone archer, you might just be able to see him here, so it gives me that partial re-roll. So turn 4, no red runes, despite flipping. Now, I was re-rolling these runes like crazy with Margath's Malcorn's Bequest, even exhausting it and having to refresh it later on, but yeah, no red runes. Aliana goes and wipes out the rest of the wraiths. Again, she's been on fire. Now, he dials in, he actually gets the curving charge off on my knights, who had gone in and taken out the rest of his knights, but he gets the rear charge on them, so they are pretty doomed. Yep, all but 2 are dead. Yep. These guys are just mucking about at the back, they're just trying to keep safe. I tried to get this tree into his archers, but he got out the way, and this tree is just wandering around aimlessly. So it's turn 5, 2 red runes. Now, I didn't take a huge number of pictures for a couple of rounds here because it was a lot of manoeuvring, but the key things to notice here is that I was able to get away with these guys who have now reformed, ready to get back into the fight if they need to. They've been blighted. I dialed in a shot with my archers, but to no great avail. So I think what happened is between these guys shooting at me and these guys, I'd got blighted 3, which meant all my dice were cancelled. This small unit has taken a shot and taken off a few archers. Alian is coming around to try and get into his forces, and the tree continues its long march across the board. So turn 6, 4 red runes and a green. I dialed in a charge with Aliana, but underestimated things. He's reformed and rallied with his archers to try and avoid the horrible rear charges. Now, my archers fire and shoot at his troops. Now, this is the important role of the game. I get the double hit on the fire rune this turn, bearing in mind it's the turn where there are 4 red runes, which is 9 damage, which takes off a Carrion Lancer. These guys are being whittled down by my archers as well. Failed charge, so I'm feeling fairly good. These guys have reformed, trying to get into a position to actually counter his Lancer coming through here. Turn 7, things are really speeding up now. Apologies for the lack of pictures, but this was the 3rd game we were playing on the day, so I wasn't quite on top of things in terms of documenting the games. Again, 2 red runes, which is nice, a green, 2 blues aren't doing much for me, but yay Armoured Tree. I decide, whatever, these guys aren't holding many points anyway, it's only their upgrade, so what the hell, I decide to charge them in, maybe pip a wound off this chap, which could make all the difference. Put a bit of panic into, go in, do a wound. I just move my tree up. Again, it's a failed charge, so that's 3 failed charges worth of panic tokens. He's just sat there in front of the reanimates. The Carrion Lancer rallies and just moves in. That's what he dialed in, so it doesn't do much, but these guys importantly rally and use their dispatch runner on the Lancer to hit the Leon's Rider. and then the machine gun unit opens fire and destroys him utterly. So this is the state of the board. Into turn 8, 4 red runes for funsies. And what's happened here, I think this is simply the end of the game. Alian was able to get a turning charge into his archers and take them off. These guys opened fire, took off loads of reanimates, and even I think I got the double red again this turn on the fire rune to take off another 8 reanimates on the actual on the fire rune. I just rallied with this guy. I didn't fancy charging him in early into a threat 3 unit, which Lewis was quite annoyed about because he dialed in the attack with his reanimates. But there was no reason for me to initiate that fight. If he charged me and took the 14 points, fair enough, but I wasn't going to give him the option, so I decided to stay there, armour up, which turned out to be the right choice. So we add it all up. I scored about 600 victory points based on this scenario for just having my Dhanati warriors at the back holding that objective token for 8 turns, right? And that just doesn't seem right. So I don't know if we've read the scenario wrong or there's a misprint on it in terms of points values, but something doesn't quite work. So the game ended technically in about 765 to 61, which is a 10-1. So yay. Still not sure about that scenario, but I still feel that the list worked well. I was very happy with it. So stick around and join me next time. Hopefully we'll take it out for another spin.